All right, I'm going to do a video on just the basics in 12.2, the measures of central tendency that you need to know how to do. So you're somewhat familiar with this. Everybody usually is already. I just want to go through some of the tricky parts of it. So just the mechanics to start with, and then just a reminder of some of the things that you need to be careful about. All right, so there's three measures we're going to be looking at, measures of central tendency. Those are measures that can be representative of the data set in some way. The mean is the one you're probably most familiar with. If somebody uses the word average, that's typically what they're talking about, is the mean. But it's supposed to be some kind of a representative value for the data set. Okay. Mean, median, and mode could all serve that purpose. Okay, so for the mean, you just add all the values and divide by the number of data values. Okay. All right, for the median, this is the trickiest one for students. It's the middle number. So to get the median, you have to put your data in order. Okay, so that's what it means by first rank the values and then look for the middle number. And then it can also be tricky when you have an odd number of data values versus an even number of data values. And I've got two examples that'll show you that. Okay. And then for the mode, it's just the number or numbers that occur the most often, okay, the most frequently. And you might have two modes, and you could talk about the data set being bimodal. And you might not have any either. All right, so I wanted to just try this, give you an example of one, and then have you try it on the other one, and then just check yourself by watching the video. Okay, so first thing, you might as well get these in order. You don't need it to be in order for the mean or the mode so much, but for the median you do. So you might as well do that. So for data set A, I'm just going to put the data values down in order. Wait, let me be more careful. So the smallest number, I'm just going to go from smallest to largest. Okay. So I'm looking through the data set up there and just going to rewrite them smallest to largest. $75, $78, then $85. Then I see two 90s, a 91, two 90s, then I saw a 91, and then there was a 95. Okay. All right, so again, they have to be in order for the median. So might as well go ahead and put them in order. Okay, got that in order. All right, now what you do for the mean is you're just going to take your calculator and you're going to add all of those up. Okay. So you go through and add all of those up, and when you do, you get a total of 750. Okay. Now to get the mean of the data set, what you're going to do is take that and divide by how many data values you had. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we'll divide by 10, and that 75 right there, that's going to be your mean. Okay, so that's the mean. Okay. All right, now for the median, you need the middle number. So this one had 10 data values. So the middle number should occur, so there's 5 here at the top and there's 5 here at the bottom. So there's no data value sitting there in the middle. So what you do in a case like that, and this is for the median, is you'll average the 78 and the 85. So you'll add them and divide by 2. And when you do that, you wind up getting 81.5. So the median isn't necessarily going to be an actual number in the data set. We had an even number of data values, so there was no clear middle number. So you go in and you take the two middle numbers and you just average them. All right, and then if the numbers are in order, it makes it a little easier to locate the mode. okay? Especially if you had a really large data set. The mode would be 90, because that's a data value that's occurring the most frequently. And that's all there is to it. I'd like for you to know mean, median, and mode before you come to class. Okay? All right, now pause the video and do set B, and then come watch the video and check to see if you did it okay. All right, so I'm going to put the data values in order since I have to find the median at some point. I might as well go ahead and put them in order. So I'm going through the data set, just getting them in order. Oops, I missed 77, 78, 280s and 85. And then 90, 91, and 94. All right, so for this one, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 data values. We're going to add all of those up. And when we do, we get 1,022. And there were 13 data values, so I'm going to divide that by 13. And I wind up having this not turning out to be exact, so I'm just going to round to the nearest tenth. We get around 78.6 for that one. That's the mean. Now, if there's 13 data values, let's think about this. If there's 13 data values, then notice you could think I've got 6 here and 6 there, and then here's your middle number, the 13th one there in the middle. Okay, that would be your median. And you wouldn't have to average anything because we had an odd number of data values. Okay, and then your mode would be 80 in this case. All right, so back to what we were looking at. These were supposed to be test scores for 2 different classes. And the mean, the median, and mode could serve as a measure of central tendency for these. Which one is most appropriate? You kind of just ponder that a little bit. I don't think the mode would make sense to use as the most representative data value. We only had 2 people, in each case getting that value. Okay. You could argue median or mean for these. Okay, notice that with data set B, the median and the mean were pretty close together. But when you looked at data set A, the mean was much lower than the median. Okay. I think for data set A, you could argue that the median might be a better measure of central tendency. It might be more representative of how the class performed, because you notice that that class, there was one super low score compared to all the others. Those really low values can really affect the mean. But whether that was a 15 or a 61 would not change the median, would it? So the median isn't as affected by really low or really high scores where the mean is. So I think for data set A, the most representative would be more the median. And that's because the really low that one really low score of 15 lowers, affects, I guess I'll say affects the mean. Okay. All right, with data set B, there are no really low or really high scores. I think either the median or the mean would be appropriate. Either one of those. because there are no really extreme values. So those are very representative of how the class did as a whole. So I'll say that, since no extreme scores. Okay. All right, so make sure you know how to do the mean, median, and mode before class on Monday.